Welcome to the final four round of the American Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers discussion meet. I'm Jason Keck of the American Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee from the state of Minnesota. I'll be serving as room chair for this round. At this time, please turn off your cell phones. Also, please keep distractions to a minimum as possible to allow for full concentration for our competitors. In the event of continual distractions, it may be necessary to ask you to leave. Farm Bureau's strength depends on its members' abilities to analyze agricultural issues and decide on solutions that best meets their needs. The discussion meet is a competition designed to build these critical skills in young, active farmers and ranchers. By participating, members build basic discussion skills, develop a keen understanding of important agricultural issues, and explore how groups can pool knowledge to reach consensus and solve problems. The discussion meet is designed to replicate a committee meeting where participants explore a topic and ways to address it. These issues are challenging and complex. The brightest minds in agriculture are still working through solutions to these issues. So, we are not expecting one solution to be presented and selected during this time. Rather, we are expecting these competitors to bring forth varied ideas and potential solutions and work together to ensure the most accurate information is shared to move this issue forward. Like at a typical committee meeting, we are not expecting judges to fact-check competitors throughout the discussion. Although competitors are expected to use reputable sources when preparing for this competition and demonstrate a strong factual analysis of the topic, judges are not expected to be experts on the topic discussed and are not in a position to verify that the information is factual or not. Rather, judges are evaluating based on a rubric with the following sections: opening statement, analysis of topic or problem, problem solving and implementation, cooperative attitude, delivery, and closing statement. Serving as moderator for this round is Daniel Jones of the AFBF YF&R Committee from California. Serving as timekeeper for this round is Andy Witten of the AFBF YF&R Committee from South Carolina. This year, 32 competitors began the discussion meet competitive event. The top 16 competitors advanced by using their cumulative rankings from round 1 and 2. The winner of each discussion of the Sweet 16 round has advanced to this final round. The judges, timekeeper, and competitors have been briefed as of the rules of the competition. I yield control of this competition to our moderator, Daniel.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate all of you taking the time to attend this competition. Competitors, remember you are not allowed to bring up any prepared notes and/or electronic devices, such as smartwatches and cell phones. Competitors, please come forward and take your position at the discussion table. Now that all competitors have been seated, writing is allowed. As our room chair has mentioned, the competitors have been briefed about the competition and their general discussion should be directed toward each other. In my role as moderator, I will not attempt to control or direct this discussion. Remember, the discussion is meant to resemble a committee meeting, with the end goal of determining possible solutions to the question at hand. This models the grassroots policy development process, and some statements may not reflect approved AFBF policy. This is not a panel discussion with an active moderator. As such, I will not intervene unless I need to do so, or until disparaging or inappropriate remarks are made. Therefore, competitors should moderate and conduct themselves in a cooperative and congenial manner. The question for this round is: increases in the price of agricultural land make access and ownership of land one of the biggest hurdles for young farmers and ranchers looking to start or expand farms and ranches. How can young farmers and ranchers position themselves to react to competition for agricultural land? The competitors for this round are Abby Campbell, Hayden Ballard, John Norwood, and Kane Thurmond. We will begin this discussion with 30-second opening statements from each competitor. Following the opening statements, there will be 30 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitors to prepare their 1-minute closing statements. Official time is kept by the timekeeper, and I will call time at the conclusion of each period when competitors are required to stop. Competitors, in voluntary order, please make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timekeeper will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding up a red card. You may begin.
In 1945, my grandfather returned from World War II and bought our family farm for $66 an acre, which was 5% of the median household income of that year. Fast forward to today, and just one of those acres is worth the entire median household income of 2024. Apples to apples, it's 20 times harder to replicate. The inflation of land prices is prohibiting the purchase and expansion of agricultural land, and we must lower this hurdle. I look forward to exploring ways young farmers can further explore access to agricultural land.
When farmland becomes unaffordable, it's not just farmers that lose. It's our entire food system. Every acre that's lost to development is one less acre that's feeding our communities. According to the USDA Ag Census from 2017 to 2023, the average price of land increased, while also the average number of acres farming decreased by 7.4%. This is making it tough on new farmers to start out and existing farmers to expand their operations. Thank you.
25% of our nation's 2 million plus farms and ranches are owned and operated by new and beginning farmers. I still remember the day my grant-funded high tunnel was installed, and I was lucky enough to be a part of that statistic. Land is the most expensive and essential part of any operation. I'm looking forward to a conversation today about creative land use and collaborating while leveraging Farm Bureau resources to react to competition to agricultural land.
My dad is fond of saying that you can buy a ranch or you can buy cows, but you can't buy both. Why is that? Because land prices have risen to a point that your cash flow no longer covers your cow payment and your land payment. Other farming operations face very similar challenges due to development and other competition. There are some ways that young producers can position themselves to face this challenge, and I look forward to discussing some of those solutions with this group today.
You have heard the opening statements. Competitors, please direct your open discussion to your fellow panel members now.
My daughter recently came to me and she told me she wanted to be a farmer when she grows up. And my first reaction wasn't necessarily what I thought it would be. Honestly, I was a bit sad and shaken because I know that the barriers to entry to farming are greater than that of an ag teacher, a lawyer, and an engineer. It's very difficult to get into farming today, especially if she's going to stay around the house. So I grew up in Jackson County, just had an opportunity to move there back there 3 years ago. And in that county, we are the 4th fastest growing county in the United States, behind 3 counties here in Texas. Last year, we grew at 5.2% in population. In the last decade, 45%. Land prices has absolutely gone through the roof. As we enter into this discussion, I think it's worth our while to kind of spend a moment on what is creating this problem and what's kind of the root cause. In my area, it's certainly residential ground, that farmland being taken up. From the 2017 census to today, we've lost about 13% of our farm ground. And when we look at the category of how large those farms are, it's 50 to 180 acres, which is a great size for a subdivision, right? So you probably know a bit about that, residential loss.
Absolutely. I mean, my state, we're the second highest growing state in terms of population. There's a lot of people moving there, and I think a lot of the reason people are moving to our state is the farms that are there. People want to see the farms. They want to go out and see cows and make sure their people, grow up in a neighborhood where they understand agriculture. But they don't always see that by doing that, they're losing, this farmland as well, and it's driving up our prices. All these subdivisions coming in, it's really increasing it. So I like what you said, Abby. We've really got to do some look at some alternative ways of maybe diversifying our farms or finding ways that we can coexist with them. Tell me about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate that we're starting this conversation by analyzing what exactly that competition is. And I think in Ohio, one of the big things that we see in competition is the growth of solar energy. We have over 94,000 acres in Ohio that are dedicated to solar. We know that the Department of Energy estimates that we're going to grow from 4% use of solar to 45% of solar in the next 20, 30 years. And so back to your question you presented, John, I think that as we later on move to solutions, it's important that we think about creative uses of land. And that's one of the ways that we can react to this competition. But I would love to hear, Hayden, your input on what are some of these other competitors that we're really facing. We've heard urbanization from John and from Kane. I brought up solar panels in Ohio and renewables. So what is the biggest challenge for Utah?
Absolutely. So, a lot of the issues that affect Utah affect the West. So all of these competitions that you guys have kind of mentioned, right? The development, the solar energy. In Utah and in the West, we have those same problems, and yet we face it on a second front as well, this competition for land. This land availability is what drives up that price, right? Because supply and demand says if there's less of something, the price of that goes up. And so in the state of Utah, about 70% of our land mass is in federal land ownership from the get-go. And so if you look at our state, only about 19% of our land mass is actually in private agriculture. And that isn't unique to us. Our neighbors in Nevada, it's about 81% is in federal ownership. And so any state that is west of the 100th meridian kind of has already a handicap in terms of this land price issue, because we just don't have a lot of private ag land to begin with, so it already has a premium value. And then absolutely the West has become a huge target, I guess, for these large solar developments coming in. And so that land availability, we just don't have to begin with. And then nationwide, we're losing about 1.9 million acres of farmland a year, which comes down to about 4 acres a minute. Mm-hmm. So we're up here on this stage for about 30 minutes, and so you think for every minute that we're up here talking, we just lost another 4 acres. And so this issue, yes, it is nationwide. And so, Kane, in Georgia, I think it's a little early to start talking solutions just yet, because I do feel like we need to flesh this out just a little bit more, beyond just developments and energy developments, right? And so, Kane, love to hear some more of your thoughts on that and kind of what's affecting Georgia and the Southeast.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you doing that. I think we do need to spend a few more moments. The great thing, what I like about what you said, Hayden, is most of that land is owned by federal, but we had a brief conversation out here, and it sounds like some of that land is accessible. So that's the beautiful thing about this question, is it doesn't say land ownership, right? Mm-hmm. It says access to agricultural land. So look forward to digging into that. So a couple of things that we talked about so far, residential coming in, industrialization is, if I could just kind of categorize solar and the other developments that are coming in, and then just simply not enough land due to many resources, or due to many resources kind of pulling upon that land. I don't know that we can necessarily zoom in and say that population growth only spurs on residential housing, right? Those people work. Those people send their kids to school. Those people need somewhere to go shopping. And so in my area, as Jackson County is absolutely just booming, that's a lot of what we're seeing, and this is a very recent phenomenon. And so we're seeing a lot of shopping centers come in. We're seeing the schools needing to expand. We built a new school in our county about 10 years ago, made the 4th school. We're now building the fifth just 10 years later. So the pool is also public land or public uses, not only public land use, but the public utilities that are needed to serve the people who build the houses, who take the land out of production. And so when the people come, it's not just a house that they need to live in.
And I want to jump in there to go back what y'all were talking about with the solar farms. One of the things I've been seeing with, and a guy I've been working with, he's doing a lot with lamb grazing. He's now running 4,000 head of sheep right now, and he's actually getting paid by these solar farm companies to put the sheep in their solar farm so they don't have to use lawnmowers and everything to keep up the maintenance on there. By that, it's really a threefold thing for him. He's not having to purchase land. He's getting paid to put his animals there. And so for him, it's the perfect plan we have for this question. It's one good way farmers can position themselves. Find these underutilized resources that other people aren't doing, and that way it has set him up in 2 years so much faster than he ever could have imagined, because the solar farms want them to come in. They want to show how sustainable they really are and able to use these different types of products where people might not be able to run cattle or pigs or anything else. So expand some more on that, Abby.
Absolutely. So as a sheep producer, my husband and I have purebred sheep. We're lambing right now, so it's a little bit of a stretch for us to be away from the farm. But we're all about multi-use. Farm Bureau policy says that we support multiple uses of our farmland, being able to collaborate with all these different stakeholders to make that possible. But as we address this issue, obviously financial barrier, whether it's installing solar panels or being able to purchase land, that's part of the question, right? It said finances was that big barrier that we have to overcome. But I think it's important that we take a minute and think about, besides finances, okay, what are the barriers to being able to react to competition for agricultural land? I know for me, one of the barriers is not necessarily the finances, but quite honestly, the time. I'm an agricultural educator, FFA advisor. I'm sure you're all familiar. That's a big amount of my time. And so I want to be able to expand my farm. I want to be able to react to competition to agricultural land, but that requires the time to do so. And I think eventually, as we move to solutions, Farm Bureau can really help with that time piece. So not only is it finances, but what are some other barriers that we see in being able to react to this competition?
Absolutely. And Abby, I love the out-of-the-box thinking that's already starting to emerge here, right? I mean, you brought up agrivoltaics right out of the box, and so we're going to have to be a little bit creative in the way that we tackle this problem, especially when it starts coming down to finances, but other barriers, right? I mean, because you can think of a couple barriers, right off the bat. For example, we have an aging population. The average age of the American farmer is now about 58 years old. And so while most of that group controls a lot of the land, at the same time, those barriers create opportunities. It's just how are we going to look at those barriers and then find a creative way to overcome them, right? And so I think that applies not only to the finance aspect, to the aging population aspect, but it also applies to an education aspect, because sometimes it's impossible to know what you don't know, right? And so if I don't know what programs are out there for me, or how to go get a loan, or how to approach a farmer who may be looking to turn over the farm or the ranch, right? If I don't know what those opportunities are, and I do think that is where Farm Bureau can play a key role, is being that platform or that middleman to make that happen. So, Kane, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm chomping at the bit over here, Hayden. So speaking about those programs, let's talk about a couple of those. And Abby, I just want to talk a moment about the Ohio Beginning Farmers Program. This is a program that was started, as you know, you could explain it, I'm sure, as well as I could, but a number of years ago. And actually what it does is it gives a credit to a farmer that is selling, leasing, or share renting property. And so they are incentivized to then sell, rent, or rent share to a young farmer. And really it categorizes it as beginning. It doesn't really want to box out someone because of age, which I think is a beautiful thing, because that lives together in unison with being a young farmer most of the time. But I know you guys are modeled after the Minnesota Beginning Farmers Program, and I think that we've got to continue to advocate as Farm Bureau gets involved, speaking about that involvement, to continue to advocate on the state level and on the local level to create these programs. We do not have one in Georgia. And so as land is is sold, those farmers are seeking the highest price possible, which is not oftentimes a new farmer or a farmer looking to expand his or her operation. And so incentivizing through tax credits, which is what that system uses, and other things at our disposal. You mentioned the loss of agricultural land going forward. I recently read an alarming study that at the rate of obviously 2% per year, land is changing hands. That means in the next 2 decades, 40% of our agricultural land will change hands. I also heard that short of conquest, that's the largest land turnover in the history of the world. So that puts a bit of urgency under me. Abby, you want to expand on, have you talked to anybody or heard from anyone who's actually used that program?
Absolutely. Kanan, I thank you for bringing up the beginning farmer tax credit, because that's something that we're really proud of in Ohio, and it really originated from the grassroots, boots on the ground policy work that Ohio Farm Bureau and all of Farm Bureau is advocating for. So we have a signature leadership program named AgriPower, and part of that program is encouraging young people to come up with solutions for some of the biggest issues in agriculture, like we're discussing here today. And 2 beginning farmers on that leadership committee really said, we need a incentive, we need this beginning farmer tax credit, and they worked with the legislative team at Ohio Farm Bureau to make it happen. And so I think the important piece of this beginning farmer tax credit is that it's incentivizing the seller to look for someone who wants to stay involved in agriculture. And I think that's a key part of the problem, but also the solution. And along with the beginning farmer tax credit, we are also, looking at what are some ways that we can make it easier for a seller to find someone who wants to stay in agriculture. So not only looking at incentivizing and tax credits, but just growing a network where, okay, I don't have anyone to pass my land on to. How do I find that person? And I think one other part of the beginning farmer tax credit that I just wanted to mention, that pieces that we can pull as we move into solutions later on, is that the beginning farmer has to take a farm business management course in order to work through that credit, okay, to be part of that transaction. So not only are we helping the seller, but everybody needs good financial management practices, especially when we're starting to buy a farm, start a business. And so I think that's a really key piece that we can pull. I'd love to hear what other programs that you all have that might simulate
I think you're on it right there. Because one of the main things when we farm, a lot of times we're farming with our heart and what we love and what we want to do, but we don't always put our mind into it the best we can. And I think going forward, we need to make sure we're taking on a good business mindset, and we're putting together a good business plan. All the big businesses, they have a plan of where they're planning on going and what they see their operation doing. But are we doing that for our own farms? Farm Credit already has a business plan set up. That way, when you're ready and that piece of ground comes available, you know how much you can afford. You're not buying it just because it's the property next door. You know, hey, I can afford this. I can make sure I'm moving in with the right decisions. You can enroll with these other projects and programs that can help you make money. And also, if you have those pre-built connections with the Farm Service Agency and Cooperative Extension Service, they have a beginning farmer program where you can get $600,000 to start out. And as our last farm bill, I know we're currently working on a new one, but the last one had funds that you could available for grants that were for new farmers and for mentorship programs. So I think as we start, let's really try and make sure we're taking a business mindset and plan our farms out to know that they're going to be affordable, and when land prices get better, our children and grandchildren will be able to afford it too. How's that going to work in Utah, Hayden?
You know what? I think I love your points there, and I want to rewind just a hair to to something you mentioned a second ago. You mentioned this AgriPower program, and I love that because that it's almost saying, you know what, we need programs and we need some of these things that are funded through things like the Farm Bureau or available through the FSA or other agencies. And yet, I love that you bring up AgriPower because it spins a little bit back on the producer, right? Mm-hmm. There has to be this balance between what is available through federal funding or state funding, but also a self-initiative, right? Because we farm with our hearts. We do it because we love it, but then put your money where your mouth is. If this is something you really want to be a part of, take the initiative and go find opportunities, right? And something that, and we're kind of transitioning into solutions here, right? Sure. We flushed out this problem well enough, and we're starting to dive into how Farm Bureau can kind of help in this conversation and what are some other things we can do. And as part of that, I really think that education is going to be key, right? Because again, if I don't know what those programs are, how am I supposed to go and take advantage of those? Or maybe I go and I enroll in something like AgriPower and go get involved in that because I need to be able to know why does the FSA need 3 years of production history? What do I need to show for 3 years of production history? What counts? What doesn't count?
Right.
Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to have prepared? And I think that's where Farm Bureau becomes that, like I say, kind of that center of ideas to help our producers know, because if I don't know that there's a state tax credit in Georgia or another state, right? And so in Utah, I think that's something I'm going to take back to my state, is to say we need to start having more, say, seminars or breakout sessions, so that way, and it's young farmers or beginning, so we're not discriminating against age there, but beginning farmers and ranchers. What do you need to do? Here's your playbook, right? Kane, I'd love to hear your thoughts more on that.
I would love to weave a couple of these ideas together. We talked about education and being aware of the programs that are out there. And then, John, you started to talk about farm credit. So let's talk about some farm credit programs. You touched on FSA. So FSA provides that loan guarantee, right, where young, beginning, small, and historically marginalized populations are able to put down 5% loan guaranteed through FSA, and a small commercial bank, Farm Credit, another credit bank is able to have that guarantee, fund the other 50%, and then help that farmer move forward with a small amount of cash put down or collateral. And so I think, when speaking about preparation, I think that is the first thing that comes to mind, is having that cash or collateral. But the beautiful thing about living in this country, having access to the farm credit system, is that they're actually required by the Farm Credit Act of 1971, which AFBF supports in their policy book, as well as many other states, including Georgia, to have that program for the YBS farmer. And so how does Farm Bureau tie into what Farm Credit is trying to do? I don't believe that Farm Bureau should invent the wheel, rather partner with someone who's doing it really well. I'll give you a quick example in just a moment here, about 60 seconds. Georgia has 2 farm credits, and those farm credits actually offer an education program called AgAware. I think you touched on what you all have in your area as well in North Carolina, but those programs already exist to create financial literacy for young, beginning, and small farmers. What if Farm Bureau stepped in and said, hey, we want to sponsor this event and we want to come alongside you, give their stamp of approval, and if a young, beginning, small farmer were to go to a commercial bank, that stamp of approval from Farm Bureau means a lot, right? As opposed to just going to the Farm Credit Seminar and walking into a competitor and saying, I've taken this class. I think Farm Bureau could kind of come alongside them and endorse that program.
Absolutely. I think Farm Bureau has the opportunity to be the leader in connecting all of these stakeholders to make something happen. And we've already seen that very evident when we talk about succession planning. Farm Bureau has really taken the lead in bringing in all these stakeholders, bringing in land-grant universities. As we start to generate these solutions, I think we're all in agreement here that financial management, understanding financial literacy is really important to help remove that barrier, be prepared to react to competition. The word land itself is in the American Farm Bureau policy book 907 times. Okay, so we all understand the relationship and the importance between land and agriculture. Okay, and so the policy clearly states that we support incentives for keeping land in productive agriculture, that we support land being passed down through our families and making it easier to do so. We think about the estate tax exemption. That's something that's really important. But I would like to know, what are some policy pieces that we feel like we should prioritize, or unique policy that you might have in your own states that we can bring here to the national level. As an agricultural educator, with my students, we talked about ag literacy, Kane. I think that starts in the classroom. I think that's an easy way to incorporate programs like you mentioned. But I also think that if we're really starting at the foundation here of solutions, it all comes to policy. I mean, that is, in essence, Farm Bureau. So what in policy do we want to prioritize, or what pieces from your own states do you think we should bring to the national level?
Abby, I 100% agree with that. Policy, I think, is a great place to start here. And in Utah, one of the things that we've really seen be effective is the use of conservation easements to help it more affordable to purchase this land. And so, we have to make sure that that funding stays available for those through things like the Farm Bureau, right? And that's where that policy and that lobbying, being engaged in the grassroots efforts, that's where that really comes to play. Because what we've seen, and I think what can be furthered, is if I'm trying to buy a piece of ground, right, especially in Utah in the West, if a piece of ground is 15 or 20,000 acres, again, I can't make that cash flow with my production, right? And so, but what I can do is I can approach that farmer or rancher and say, you know what, I see you have this listed for sale. You're asking $20,000. I don't have $20,000 an acre, but what I do have is connections through Farm Bureau to several companies or organizations that will be willing to purchase a conservation easement on your land. And those conservation easements are typically assessed at about 75% of the fair market value of that land. And so if you can go to the conservation easement group and say, would you be willing to buy this easement for the $15,000? I'm willing to pitch in the $5,000 for the ag value of it. Now all of a sudden we've created a win-win situation where the farmer or the landowner gets what he was asking, the young farmer and rancher gets to be in the business, and the group gets to see that land stay as open space, right?
And that's
so in North Carolina, I would love to hear if that would work as a policy.
So that's a very interesting thing that we're working on right now, and there's a whole lot to unpack with that question. So with us, conservation easements can be a very good thing, but you also have to make sure it's put into the right location. I've got a friend here in the audience today that their family just put their farm into a conservation easement program of about 300 acres. One of the main problems was, though, that took a full 5 years. And taking 5 years, if you're trying to buy a piece of property, that's a tough thing to try and stomach with your business planning, and the seller's not going to want to wait that long to try and buy the piece of property. The other thing you've got to make sure you're looking at is, are we conserving the right piece of property and putting these conservation easements in the right location? In my county, we've only had one farm that is set up with a conservation easement. And part of that problem is because our state level only pays half of the development rights of your property whenever they're looking at buying those conservation easements. So what I'm working on with the Ag Advisory Board within my county is I'm working on getting the funds put in with the present use value of whenever somebody takes land out of zoned agricultural use to maybe put into residential, part of those tax dollar funding goes directly into a fund that we use to pick to conserve the best farmlands. And when you're looking at agriculture in North Carolina, you may not want to get a full conservation easement on, say, a large hog farm. Because do you want a big housing development put around a hog farm? We're already dealing with hog nuisance lawsuits in our state, and we really don't want to have to go through that again. But at the same time, if you're trying to conserve a small farm for a vegetable or fruit operation, and that is surrounded by development, that could be a haven of a perfect farm stand. So with North Carolina, it's a very slippery slope you have to follow to make sure we're conserving the best land, and not just farmland. And I think that's why we need to also talk with our county commissioners and the planning and zoning board as we go forward and try and say, hey, look, is your zoning plan taking into account soil samples?
Right.
You know, are you making sure that the land we're saving isn't the best agricultural land we have in the state? So going forward, that's going to help a lot too. How are the conservation districts working in Georgia?
Yeah, so we just started a program in 2023, super excited about it. We've had a couple of smaller land trusts along a river that we're trying to conserve, but that land trust has been expanded recently, so I'm glad to be among the 29 states that do have conservation easement programs, as well as all 3 of your states being in the PACE program as well. So they protected about 3.2 million acres so far, and we all know that 18 million acres are anticipated to be lost to development in the next I guess that's 15 years by 2040, and that's about the size of South Carolina is how much land we're expected to lose. So if we can utilize this mechanism of a conservation easement, I think that would be a fantastic route. One of the things I want to talk about is tying back in a couple of the lessons that we learned earlier, things we talked about of education. When I look online, there is a bank, a really good, accessible bank to see where these land trusts and conservation easements are, but it doesn't really link it to Zillow or Trulia or any of those apps that would tell us. I mean, it's kind of funny. I can log onto my phone and search a 3-2 house within a certain price range, and I'm not able to go on there and see agricultural land for sale that is in a conservation easement. And so making that accessible and making that easy to access is, I think, really important. I want to go back to policy a bit. Abby, I think you asked, what is the policy in the AFBF book that actually helps us with these conservation easements? There's a whole section dedicated to conservation easements. And one of the things that really doesn't agree with practice today is that most of these conservation easements are into perpetuity, whereas Farm Bureau advocates that these conservation easements not be into perpetuity, so that if a residential housing addition goes in next door to a poultry farm in Northeast Georgia, we're able to maybe get out of that conservation easement management. So I don't know how that would land in your states, but would love to hear your thoughts on the policy that's already existing and if we may need to reformulate that to match what we're trying to get at here.
I think as we evaluate all of these pieces that we brought together, conservation easements, I think the key piece from that we can take in this conversation is that we're focusing on building relationships. And I think this is where Farm Bureau policy and conservation easements can come together. John Maxwell tells us that leadership is influence. And if we're able to have a positive influence as Farm Bureau, as farmers, and working with this conservation easement program, I think we have an opportunity to really tie together, you mentioned Zillow, right? Tie together, okay, I'm building a relationship with someone who has a farm and a conservation easement. I now know that there's people who are going to be looking to start a farm. And I think we also need to be creative with our land use solutions, kind of going back to where we started with solutions here. You know, Ohio has a Growing Tomorrow grant, and this grant specifically allows for people to say, hey, you know, I want to start this operation. And maybe it is just beekeeping, maybe it's fabrication, you know, maybe it's not the buying the 1,000 acres that we initially associate with agriculture. But this grant allows for all the finalists to have a financial business plan review, something that we all identified that was really important. And it's going to provide $50,000 to a farmer to get started. And so as we start to tie these pieces of our conversation together, we've clearly identified education is really important. Financial management is really important. And I'd love to know, you know, what are some action steps besides prioritizing that policy, you know, making conservation easements maybe something that's more relevant in North Carolina specifically, you know, finding that land that's worth putting in that easement that's going to make sense moving forward. So what are some action steps that we feel like as a group moving forward that we want to bring back to our home counties that's going to help us make this a reality?
We just need to make sure we're getting the word out there, is what I think. We need to make sure that farmers know about these different opportunities we have. You know, Farm Bureau from the grassroots level, we can have workshops within our own county about what works best, what's happened with others, and, you know, on the state and national level, we can have all these as well. And we can bring in tax professionals to make sure that our land is on the best present use value tax that's applicable to your farm. Because that's one of the way to lower your costs is make sure you're paying your taxes right. And as far as policy goes, with you were mentioning about the conservation easements, that's kind of the original purpose is you want the farms to farm in perpetuity. You don't want them to be able to get out because we're losing land at such a high rate. So I think going forward, we've got to make sure we're getting the word out to people, what's out there, how you can expand and move forward to help other farmers to make sure they're doing well and not just you on your own farm. What do you think is important, Hayden?
You know what, and we've got our 5-minute card up there, and we've only got a couple minutes left. So as we're kind of bringing all these ideas together, you know, you hit on relationships as one of those action items, and I 100% agree with that. I think, like you said, getting people educated, but then those relationships is how we're going to do that, and that's how I think how Farm Bureau is going to help with that. On a personal, my wife and I, we bought our first farm this last fall, and the only reason we were able to buy it is because of Farm Bureau and the relationships that we had built by going to the county Farm Bureau meetings and being involved. We started leasing some ground close to home, and we approached a farmer there at the county Farm Bureau and just said, hey, can we lease this ground from you? And they saw, you know what, these kids are they're trying to get involved into agriculture, let's help them out. And so then they offered to sell that land to us. And so I think that was an organic experience, and yet I think we can take those types of relationships and we can make them a little more formal, whether that's through some form of a mentorship program, and I know Farm Bureau and other states already have some of those that are kind of in place, and I think I would love to discuss that more as to how we take that, how do we expand that, and you're the one that kind of pointed out relationships, so I'd kind of love to hear some final thoughts from you on that one.
Absolutely. We've all attended a session probably at our Young Ag Professionals Conference or a Fusion Conference that has to do with succession. Why is there not a session about how do you attract an investor?
Right.
How do you build a relationship with someone who has a conservation easement? How do you prepare yourself to be the most financially ready to pull the trigger on that decision to purchase land? And so I think we can be really intentional with these sessions, or, you know, how do I start farming when I only have a few acres? Or how do I lease acreage in a way that makes sense for me until I'm able to have the financial tools in place to make a big purchase? I think those are action items that we can take home with us today.
Yeah, Abby, I totally agree with that. I'm glad you brought up leasing. About 39% of the land in this country is leased. That is terrifying to me, thinking about the trend of that, as well as even more terrifying with investments taken into land. And so how do we go to those individuals who are purchasing land and speak to them about leases?
Time has been called. Please prepare your closing statements. I ask that the audience remain silent for 1 minute to to aid the competitors in their competition. Time. Please put down your pencils, and in voluntary order, please stand and share your 1-minute closing statement.
Land. It's a farmer's most essential tool. Our day starts with it, and most of our products end with it, and we all know they're not making any more of it. Land prices continue to go up, while also the population that we have to feed. We have to make sure going forward as a Farm Bureau group, we focus on education and growing our relationships with our neighboring farmers to make sure that farms stay affordable and we keep farms farming and this nation fed. Thank you.
I don't think my grandfather could have imagined the pressures placed upon his grandchildren with the need to expand the family farm. Looking at the solutions that we've discussed today, though, I think he will be confident in the young farmer going forward and our ability to access agricultural land. We talked about some important things today, being aware of the programs that are out there and the importance of education, the importance of relationships as we move forward to access that land which might not yet belong to us. And with the two-pronged approach, we talked about the root cause issue of the price of land and perhaps mitigating that with land trusts. I look forward to taking this advice here today back to my home county and my home state. Thank you all.
An influential person in Ohio Farm Bureau told me that without the relationships they built and the courage to make the ask, they wouldn't be where they are today. And I think after our conversation this morning, we can all agree that relationships are at the heart of what we do and at the heart of our land. From listening to Kane talk about conservation easements, to John talking about creative land use, and Hayden talking about the importance of financial education, I believe that we are set up to take these solutions back to our home counties and our home states as we continue to react to competition for agricultural land for the future of us all.
Similar to Kane's family, my family originally homesteaded southern Utah roughly 150 years ago, and they had their own challenges to obtain the land necessary to make a living. And we face different challenges in the form of how we're going to acquire that and how we're going to afford it. And so while we didn't solve that problem today, I do feel like we took some very extremely productive steps and discussed some solutions that I do feel we can take back to our home states and start to implement. And that's by accessing and doing what Farm Bureau already does well. By using that grassroots policy development, by using that network and the education that Farm Bureau is already doing, we can take that, build on it, and I think if we do that, there's a lot of bright minds up here, and I think that there is sincerely a bright future for American agriculture. Thank you.
Today's discussion surfaced a number of ideas to address this timely policy issue. The contestants are now encouraged to engage in the Farm Bureau grassroots policy development process to build upon the work of today's discussion. Let's show these competitors our appreciation for a job well done. At this time, I will return control of this competition to the room chair, Jason.
Thank you, Daniel, for a well-run competition. The judges for today's competition are Rick Henningfeld, Ray Pianzik, Matt Feynman, Boone McAfee, and Sherry Saylor. I now ask the judges to report with me to the tabulation room.
Thank you to our judges and timekeeper. We appreciate your help this morning. We would now like each competitor to make a brief statement about themselves, their Farm Bureau experience, and their connection to agriculture in voluntary order.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby Campbell. I'm an agricultural educator and FFA advisor in Ohio. My husband is also an agricultural educator. We live on his fourth generation sheep and swine farm. We've diversified recently to add a high tunnel, so we have cut flowers and pumpkins. And our Farm Bureau involvement really focuses around both being members of our state Young Ag Professionals Committee, and we look forward to continuing to bring some great ideas back to Washington County. Thank you so much.
My name is Hayden Ballard. I'm a sixth-generation rancher in North Arizona and southern Utah, and my wife Lindsay's here with our little boy Riggin. And you know, we do all of this in the agricultural world. At least I do it, hopefully, so there's a seventh generation of Ballards on the same ranch. And in my day job, I'm a practicing attorney. I run a nonprofit organization focused on federal land use policy and particularly federal land grazing, trying to advocate for our ranchers to keep them on the land that they've been stewards over for the last century. You know, I've only been a member of Farm Bureau for the last couple of years, and it's been a great organization. It's been a great experience. Utah's got a strong delegation here, so thank you all for coming. And all you other states, be proud. This is a great group of people, just getting to talk to them behind the stage a little bit. And in that last round, you know, Tennessee, Alabama, and Iowa, y'all came loaded for bear, so that was tough. Y'all be proud. Thank you.
I'm John Norwood from Rockingham County, North Carolina. My wife and I'm now the fifth generation on my family's farm, where my wife and we run an operation where we're direct to consumers with raising beef cattle. We've really found our niche with selling to restaurants. We sell for beef, pork, and lamb to different restaurants. Thanks to my family, my in-laws, for watching my kids. I'm on my county Farm Bureau board and proud to be on that. And I just wish today that all the teachers that wrote "talks too much" during class on my report card could see me up here right now. So, thank you.
That's awesome, John. I was always kind of the quiet kid, and FFA IO to kind of get me out of that shell. But Kane Thurman from Jefferson, Georgia. If you know where the University of Georgia is, I'm about 20 minutes north of there. My wife Whitney is here, and she has been my coach, and having your spouse as your coach is the greatest blessing, and the other side of that is present as well. But she knows me super well and has been able to coach me through this process, so thank you, Whitney. We've got a little girl at home, and thank you to my parents for keeping her, and the Lord called us to foster children, so at any given time we may have one or two children in our house running around as well. But we started a Christmas tree farm a number of years ago. I grew up on a cow-calf operation, but due to the price of land, I could not run cattle, so we decided that on the ground that we bought from some family, which is sixth generation, my daughter will be seventh as well, we're going to run a Christmas tree farm. So we are in the waiting. The waiting has been hard this week, but I've got 2 more years before our Christmas trees actually sell, so I'm in perpetual waiting, it feels like. Was recently elected to the county board in Jackson County, and really look forward to digging in and showing everyone what agriculture is like. So thank you all for having us, and thank you for a fantastic discussion today.
Thank you, competitors. The winner of the 2025 discussion meet will be announced during the closing general session later this morning. Thank you again to our competitive event sponsors, Ford, Case IH, American Ag, and Stanley Black & Decker. They make it possible for us to award over $200,000 in cash and prizes during the closing session. Please join me in a round of applause to show our appreciation to our outstanding sponsors. We appreciate your support of the YF&R program and hope you will attend the closing general session, where we will be announcing the winners of the 2025 Young Farmers and Ranchers competitive events. The closing general session will be held in Exhibit Hall 1 of the Henry G. Gonzalez Convention Center, beginning at 11:30 a.m. There will be reserved seating for the final 4 discussion meet competitors. Thank you once again, and have a great day.
beyond just carbon, to feature a discussion. I'm Roger Crine. I'm the Chief Economist of the American Farm Bureau Federation, and I'm here with Carrie Volmer-Sanders, who is the president of Field to Market, which is a organization that's focused on promoting sustainable agricultural practices. It is the organization that American Farm Bureau has invested its time and resources in supporting voluntary market-based incentives on the private sector side. The organization, I'll let Carrie talk more about the organization, but I'll introduce Carrie. Carrie just became our president this past fall. Carrie is a farmer and a Farm Bureau member. She was a employee at Michigan Farm Bureau. She handled Michigan Farm Bureau's environmental issues for about almost 5 years. She has worked for the Nature Conservancy, the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action, and I'm forgetting one.
Nope, that's it.
Oh, that's it. She has a master's degree in agricultural economics from Michigan State, which in my biased opinion is a very important credential for seeing the big picture on so many things in agriculture and in the economy generally. She also has an MBA. She has a real commitment to serving farmers and serving sustainability. And I think with that introduction, I will just ask Carrie to see if there's anything she wants to add to her introduction. Is there anything you want to add to that introduction?
No, you did a great job, Roger. I guess I will say I've always worked at the intersection of agriculture and conservation or sustainability. The words have changed, over the course of the last 20 years. But I really have a passion to help agriculture be the best industry it can be, to help farmers do the best work they can do, and to provide services beyond the food, fiber, fuel, and feed.
That's fantastic. And we're very lucky to have you. Field to Market is a unique organization. It's the only nonprofit in the space anymore that's doing what it's doing, and its governance and representation is kind of critical. All that. Would you talk a little bit about the mission of Field to Market?
Yeah, thanks, Roger. And we really appreciate American Farm Bureau Federation's support for Field to Market. So we started about 19 years ago, and as you said, we're the largest nonprofit focused on agriculture and sustainability in the country. And when you have that title, it probably means you're the largest in the world as well. But our focus is to help make an impact. We want to enhance farmer livelihoods and build resilient ecosystems. We have those two goals in mind in every decision we make. And we have 5 different sectors that govern who we are and what we do. And those 5 sectors is farmers, agribusinesses, brands and retail. We've got civil society, which I often just call the nonprofit sector. And then we have something called the affiliate group. So it's those like university professionals, researchers, everyone else that doesn't fit into an agribusiness, brands, retail, farmer, or nonprofit sector. And those 5 sectors help govern everything we do. That's how we have the board set up. They have equal voting representation on the board level when we're deciding what the metrics look like, reviewing the data. So it really is a place where everybody has an equal footing. And we do 3 things, I would say, really well. One, we bring people together. So whether it's convening or collaborating, we have the largest sustainability sustainability conference focused on agriculture and sustainability in the country. That's in November every year. Next year it'll be in Anaheim. So if you're coming back to AFBF, you could go to California twice in 1 year. So that might be nice. We also do a great job of helping farmers calculate their environmental footprint. So we have something called the FieldPrint platform. And it's a free tool. So many of the tools are expensive, or you can only get access through certain platforms or certain ag businesses. Our tool is free. You can find it on our website. You enter in the data, and there's 8 different metrics. It's beyond carbon.
Right.
And that was brilliant when it was set up 19 years ago. So it talks about soil health, carbon, or the soil carbon, the greenhouse gas emissions, energy, water use, water quality. We have land use, which comes up as an important indicator when talking now to Europe. And did I hit all of them? I lost
don't know.
count.
There's a lot.
But there's
land,
8.
And the land use is also an important part of the modern calculations for carbon.
Yes, that's right.
And I think it's useful to point out that there's a lot more to sustainability of agriculture and the environment than carbon.
Right.
There's been a massive focus on carbon by government institutions and nonprofits and industry. But if you really want to have a sustainable agriculture, you've got to look at more than just carbon. Is that right?
That's right. And, you know, I was at the Michigan Farm Bureau, and I grew up in Ohio. We still farm in Ohio with my parents, and we don't irrigate anything there. God has blessed us with this, you know, natural irrigation in the Maumee River watershed. But in Michigan, they irrigate a lot of things. They irrigate all sorts of vegetables and fruit and seed corn, et cetera. So I learned a lot about water use when I worked at Michigan Farm Bureau, and I think it's something that people are now starting to understand. Carbon is not the most important thing. Maybe it is water.
Right.
Or a combination. We just can't lose sight of crop production because we're so focused on carbon sequestration. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the transition that's happening right now.
And field to market makes sure that farmers are in the middle of all this, right? I mean, you talked about 5 sectors and representation, but 4 of those sectors have representation.
Right.
The voting representation.
That's right.
And so farmers have a quarter of
That's true.
the board seats.
Yeah. So farmers, agribusiness, the brands and retail, and the civil society or the nonprofit, they get to vote on what needs to happen. So 25% of the votes, are for farmers. And I should also point out we've got 29 grower sector members. We've got about 200 members overall. Our agribusiness sector is the largest by far, and that's because if you think about agribusiness, some agribusinesses serve farmers, some agribusinesses serve brands and retail, but they're kind of that middle ground, and there's a lot of them. So there's you would expect to have a larger sector there, but I was thrilled. I asked staff, so I've been at Field to Market for 5 months yesterday, and what I asked staff to give me a number, like how many growers are really using the FieldPrint platform. We've got 6,000 growers using the platform. We're almost on almost 7 million acres across the U.S. So we really have, no pun intended, a large footprint with the FieldPrint calculator.
And that's a focus. So can you talk about some of the things that we're looking to do in 2025 with the model, with engagement, with what are some of the things you're looking to do in the next year?
It's so you've probably heard the saying that models are necessary, they're important, some are useful. I would say our FieldPrint calculator model gets updated every couple of years. We try to look at each of those 8 metrics and update the information. We get new research happens, better data, more specific. So this year we actually have 3 of the 8 metrics are being updated. So it's the soil carbon, the greenhouse gas emissions, and energy use. So after this update that will take place in June-ish timeline, we will have, from my understanding, and I could be getting some biased information, the best, most specific calculator that's out there. We've always prided ourselves on making sure that we're connecting with any global rules and protocols. And after this update, we will have alignment with all of the global protocols for sure.
And the FieldPrint platform is designed to be accessible for use in a lot of different programs, right? There's a lot of folks have different standards, different ways of looking at things, and the objective is to be sort of agnostic about what the right set of standards is.
That's right. So globally, there's things called the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. There's the gold standard. There's a number of different standards globally that food companies, fuel companies will have to meet. The nice thing about our platform is we can have alignment with all of them, so you can fill out one bit of information, or answer this set of questions, and your crop could be sold anywhere in the value chain, and it's going to meet those demands no matter where it goes, because of that alignment with all of these global platforms and rules. And that's not easy. Right. It's so we're also a nonprofit, so we're a member organization, and there's a lot of companies out there that charge for the tools. It might be $7.50 an acre. It might be $10 an acre. When you work with the FieldPrint calculator, I mentioned this earlier, you can enter your data for free. Because we're a nonprofit, we're open source, we're working with the ag community, so it doesn't cost you anything to enter your data. If you work with a project, so we have a lot of different companies that come to us and they help set up projects. Remind me to talk about Wisconsin just in a minute.
Okay.
But the companies come to us and like, all right, we'd like to work on a wheat project, and we want to do it in these states. We can help match them to the whole value chain because we have those members. And if they are full members, so a brand company that is a full member pays a one-time fee or annual fee, and they can have unlimited acres. They could have 1 million acres. Farmers could enter their data, and it doesn't cost anyone anything. This is the beauty of a nonprofit. Sometimes you go to the agribusinesses that have this as a for-profit entity, and yes, there's probably more customer service, but we're pretty good, I would say. And it's gonna, the price to even participate in the market is just so high.
Right.
So I think that's one of the benefits of coming to work with us. Not only did farmers help decide what the rules are, what the metrics are, but we're also making it possible to use it in a way that's economical.
And because we're a nonprofit with farmers in sort of the center of everything, we're not selling anything.
That's right.
And I say we sometimes because I'm on the board. I represent Farm Bureau on the board of Field to Market. And you talked about the FieldPrint calculator. Farmers can enter their data directly. That has been a challenge at times, and is that another focus for the coming year? Is improvement of the interface?
That's right. There's a term called UX, user interface design, and that's being updated right now as well. I'm learning a lot of new acronyms. You think we have enough in agriculture, right? But now that I'm working at Field to Market, there's a whole new set of acronyms that I'm learning. So UX is the user interface is something that we're focused on again, and that's not going to be a one-time fix. It's kind of going to be ongoing, right? So as farmers use the platform, we'll change things or try to make it as easy as possible. Some of those things, like now when you go to our platform, the fields are already kind of outlined, so you can choose the fields rather than having to draw the field boundaries, which is what it used to be. So we're working on that to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible.
That's great. And we've talked at times about the emphasis on Field to Market's leadership in this space, and the desire to make the Field to Market, the FieldPrint calculator, FieldPrint platform, something that folks can use to explore sustainability markets to explore what they've got to sell, what they've got available, and to help to even potentially be in a teaching tool for folks at the universities.
Yeah.
Ideally, we make something that's usable, easily used for all kinds of things.
That's right. It's a great point, Roger. And something that I think is important as a farmer, you don't really know what you have. You don't know what your value is until someone helps you figure it out, right? It's like with all these land prices now, like you don't really know what the price of land is until you get someone to come out and help appraise it, right? So this is kind of along that same lines. You could enter your data and be like, oh, I've got a really great water score. I've got a really great greenhouse gas score. My energy score is great. So you can know that. So you kind of know what your value is going into the conversations maybe with your co-op, elevator, wherever you're taking your grain. And I think that's one of the benefits is because often we just don't know what we have.
Yeah.
Or we don't know the value of it, I should say that.
So as a farmer, why do you care about what Field to Market does? Aside from your role as the president, but
sure.
as a farmer who cares about your operation and your family and your environment, why do you care about what Field to Market does?
So that's a really great question.
And I should have prepped you.
No, I mean, so.
But it gets to the heart of the mission because
yes.
Yes. This is Farm Bureau. We're interested in why this matters for farmers and why farmers should care.
Yep.
You are a farmer.
Right.
Now the president of the Field to Market. Why do you care? No, I'm not asking you to tell other farmers why they should care. I'm asking you, why do you care as a farmer about it?
Well, so I think it goes back to understanding how important it is to be a member of something that's larger than yourself. It's like we're Farm Bureau members because we believe that we need help down at the state office or in DC, helping represent and uphold the farmer values. Field to Market, one of the things that gets me so excited is I want farmers to have just the right voice, the right representation when it comes to talking about all these environmental issues. We have to be able to have this market mindset. We have to be able to say, you know what, farmers are doing really great things. I want someone to help me tell that story, use data so that it's not just, a feel-good story, but also be able to have the conversations within the U.S., globally, and with all of the brand companies. I think that's one of the benefits is Field to Market is not just it's not just farmers talking to ourselves, it's farmers talking with the agribusinesses, with the brands, with the nonprofits, with the research institutions, so that the message is heard throughout. And I'll take it one step further. So when I was I think I was still in college, I did a presentation to my ag sorority, Sigma Alpha, if there's any. Sigma Alpha, that's right. Sisters in Agriculture, if you're not familiar what it stands for. But I did a presentation to my sisters, and it was all about we as agriculture have to come together. We can't be putting, organic above conventional or irrigated above non-irrigated. We are agriculture, and we have to have a united front. And I think that's one of the benefits that Field to Market can have is we're helping agriculture have a united front with the agribusinesses and the brands.
One of the big functions of Field to Market that we haven't gotten into yet is sort of defining metrics and standards. And in the development of the platform, looking at those broadly enough that we can look at a variety of approaches. But you and I have talked about how ultimately, like with so many other things, like with the organic standards, for example, ultimately the government will at least set some guardrails around what sustainability looks like or what it is.
Right.
And how does Field to Market's leadership help us establish a baseline so that when the government makes a decision, it looks like it makes more sense than something that somebody made up in the back of bureaucratic office?
So I think there's a couple of ways. So one, we have a really great relationship with the USDA. We actually have someone from NRCS on our board, so we have input also from that organization. But a couple of things. So field to market, again, we update our standards often, the metrics, so that we're using the best available data. That information is shared with USDA, NRCS on a regular basis. We also get involved with commenting on the science that the federal government is putting out. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with the 45Z. We're not sure what's happening with that, right? Like it's on pause, not on pause, back and forth. What the federal government has shown as options for measuring that, we could, with some little bit of money, make some edits to our platform and be able to make that calculation possible on our FieldPrint platform. It's good data, and we believe they have made the right decision in the metric, in the calculation, in the model. So I think we have shared that with them. We have that communication often. I'm also part of something called the Growing Climate Solutions Advisory Council. So that just came out in early January, so earlier this month.
That's a USDA advisory committee.
It is a USDA advisory committee, and it's really there to talk about markets. Like, how could we set up markets for agriculture, I say agriculture, that also means forestry. So when you think about agriculture, think about farmers, ranchers, foresters.
Yeah.
And I'm not an agriculture representative, I'm a nonprofit representative. I know many of the folks on the ag representatives, but I think that's another place where field to market can help influence the science and what's happening across the U.S.
To make sure that the science actually matters, to make sure if
Right.
we're requiring or paying farmers to do things, that it actually has the impact that we're hoping for, that it's not just going through the motions to feel good about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Field to Market's also involved in, is overseeing a large project under the Climate Smart Partnership for Climate Smart Commodities program.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, so what's really cool is we have an innovative finance committee at Field to Market. We have a number of committees. One of them is on innovative finance. We have this project. It's $70 million with the federal government along with private dollars as match. We've got 8 different projects across the U.S., different states, different commodities. We have a booth right down this aisle here. It's got an orange backdrop, booth 425. You should stop by. We have it outlined by state, what projects are happening, but it's all about, okay, we know that this, the buyers of our commodities wants us to share data and grow things maybe in a specific way. 1, how do we get paid for that? 2, if you have to change equipment or you have to add something different to your farming operation, your system, how do you afford that? So we've paired not only the practices, but also the finance with it. So maybe it's a lower interest loan, maybe it's a one-time payment or a set of payments over a couple of years, maybe it's a loan, a warranty that you're going to hit the same yield if you change the practices. So we have a number of different innovative finance mechanisms to stack on top of, like, your cover crop payment, for example. And that's one of the things that I think is really important as farmers. You think about the whole system, right? Like, it's not just the one practice that you're changing. It probably is additional labor, different data. Who are you going to get to help? We can help with that with some of our projects. And you didn't remind me, but I'm going to mention it. Wisconsin.
Tell us about Wisconsin.
So real quick, I've got just a few seconds. Wisconsin farmers came together and they said, you know, we want to tell a better story about what we're doing for water quality in the area where we live. They partnered with someone called Farmers for Sustainable Food and Houston Engineering. They used our tool. They gathered data for a couple of years, 2 years, I think, and then they started telling the story. Essentially, they needed the data to tell the story. And they could tell the story beyond just water, which is where they had started. They talked about biodiversity. They talked about land use. They talked about energy. It was fantastic. And they've had such good feedback from their local areas that they want more. It's not just one county, it's several counties that came together. They want more counties to do that. And I think that's something that Farm Bureau members could do fairly easily.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Farm Bureau, of course, has made a focus of sustainability efforts being achieved through voluntary market-based incentives to to avoid mandates. We've been absolutely opposed to mandates on environmental issues, environmental practices, and we believe that the approach that Field to Market is taking, and the approach that USDA took with Climate Smart Solutions program is much better than putting mandates on farmers what they have to do. Please visit the Field to Market booth. I want to thank Terry for joining us here today.
Thank you, Roger.
For everything you're doing. We're so happy to have a Farm Bureau member and staff alumni in charge of Field to Market. It's a great organization with a great mission, and we'll look forward to working with you for years to come.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Todd, could I steal a clicker from you? All right, they're going to grab me a clicker so we can get moving. My name is Dan Venteicher. I do have a name other than the Iowa dairy farmer, believe it or not. Thank you, Todd. We have a lot to cover in 25 minutes, so I'm going to get rolling. The first thing I want to show everybody here is our little agenda we're going to do real quick. Just a little bit of background on my story, sharing on social media, things we've learned, insights, advice, and then if we have time, hopefully we'll do some Q&A. This is my wife, Jamie. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without her. In fact, it's her fault I'm here. Back in 2021, we'll go over the timeline later. She was the one who kind of pushed me to get started sharing on social media. She said, Dan, you're good at talking, just talking to the phone, tell people about dairy farming. So everything that's happened is her fault. Now, I married a very, very beautiful wife, and the internet is ruthless about reminding me. If you can't read what those say, Mitch says, you definitely married out of your league. Good job, keep the videos coming. James says, damn, dude, you are definitely fighting above your weight class. Congratulations. So I know I have a beautiful wife. The internet is ruthless in reminding me. My wife, I say, she's a 9 out of 10. Why did I say 9 out of 10, not 10 out of 10? She married me. Clearly there's an underlying mental condition lurking in the shadows. So at some point we'll figure out what that is and she'll move up to a 10 out of 10. This is my beautiful family. The two at the bottom, Clara Jean there is in the blue denim jacket, and my wife is holding James. Those two are very special to us. All the kids are special, but the last two were kind of a surprise because in 2018 I actually went through a battle with cancer. It was March to end of 2018, and we were told essentially after going through that we weren't going to be able to have any more kids. And so the first two kids we were very blessed with, but the last two kids we weren't expecting. So my wife was actually pregnant with Paul, the second born, when I was going through chemotherapy. And then we were excited with the first two, but we wept when we found out we were having Clara Jean. And then a couple years later, we had James. So needless to say, we're a lot more careful now. But I bring up our journey with cancer because a lot of that, and unexpectedly so, some people expect it relates to our journey with social media. And I want to talk about that. And what I want you guys to kind of ruminate on, see what I did there? What I want you to ruminate on is when we go through trials, when we go through things that don't go well, like cancer, how well do we suffer? So if you're a person of faith, you could phrase it this way. If you want to know how holy you are, how well do you suffer? Or if you're a person who just wants to be a virtuous person, if you want to know how virtuous you are, how well do you go through trials? How well do you suffer? And that's a question we faced going through that, but it's an even bigger question we faced going through some of the trials we had with social media. So, a lesson I want to get across to everybody is don't make people feel stupid. And I have another way to phrase this here in a minute. So back in high school, I was a junior in high school, and this is where this lesson really got burned into my mind, is we were at this little Christmas party, and there was a little snowstorm coming, which it wasn't like a really bad one, so we didn't cancel the Christmas party. We decided to keep it going. There was one guy who pulled in, and he said he was going to leave early because of the snow, and I kind of thought maybe he was being a wimp. So I had made a comment to him. I knew he drove a car, and I knew like trucks, two-wheel drive trucks, they're horrible in snow, especially if they don't have four-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive vehicles suck. Everybody knows that. So I made a comment to Jordan, like, why are you leaving? Like, I thought cars did well in the snow. The next 5 minutes were spent making me feel incredibly stupid because Jordan drove a Ford Mustang. And I knew that, but I didn't know Ford Mustangs were rear-wheel drive. So for the next 5 minutes, him, 3 other people, and who was now my ex-girlfriend at the time, spent the next 5 minutes just making me feel stupid for not knowing that a Mustang is rear-wheel drive. I did not know that knowing a Mustang is rear-wheel drive is common knowledge, like something we're all supposed to be born with. Everybody in that room, evidently everybody knew Mustangs are rear-wheel drive but me. So it was an opportunity to make me feel stupid. So the lesson is, don't blame people for not knowing what they don't know. I don't blame people for not knowing that bulls aren't killed at birth. I don't blame you for not knowing cows don't care about cow-calf separation. I don't blame you for not knowing we benefit the environment, not hurt it. People don't know what they don't know. And in agriculture, we have a tendency to kind of take advantage of that because we were born and raised in this. Like, you can't teach what farmers know in 1, 2, or 3 year class. So we know a lot of things, and we tend to sometimes, unfortunately, and maybe even accidentally, make other people feel stupid for not knowing what we know. So like a small example of this is just last year, I was on TikTok and I commented on another farmer's post. And he's a great guy. He's a younger farmer, but he has a planter, and it's a 3-point planter. And it's a 3-point planter where the arms fold up like this. Some of you are nodding. You know what? I've never seen one of those. In Iowa, everything hooks up to the drawbar. Iowa, Wisconsin, like dairy country, everything hooks up to the drawbar. So we were asking, like, why do you have a 3-point planter, like a 16-row planter that does this? And a lot of people were asking the comment. Well, this next video is addressing the answer to that. And he says, like, his kind of tone was, well, let's use some common sense, right? Like, we do seed corn, obviously, so duh, we need this kind of planter. I'm like, well, why is that common sense? We don't know you do seed corn, and number two, if you're not a farmer, what the heck is seed corn? So I know, like, if I go back to that profile and I have a question, I'm way more hesitant to ask him a question because I was made to feel stupid for asking what kind of planter do you run. And I think that's part of the reason I'm going to go into here in a little bit about why consumers and why people have been attracted to our page is I go out of my way to make sure people don't feel stupid for asking a question, because even like us as adults on the internet, people make us feel stupid for asking questions when I don't know why you have a 3-point planter, but now I feel stupid for asking. And we don't want to make people feel that way. So our timeline for how we did everything we did on social media, I get asked a lot about how we did what we did, when we got started. So we've gained a lot of followers in a short amount of time. So March of 2021, we started on TikTok, and the words are kind of small, but it took about 2 weeks to find the angry vegans. There's a lot of them on the app, and there still is, but it was my wife who kind of pushed me to get started in March to putting videos on TikTok. Megan McAllister, she's very active in the Iowa Farm Bureau. She had started on TikTok in like September of 2020. So I saw she was doing it. She had a lot of videos that were getting a lot of views. So I thought, well, if Megan can do it, I'm going to give it a whirl. So we did. By that summer, we had 300,000 to 400,000 followers. People liked seeing the robots. People liked seeing the vegan rebuttal videos where, like, you know, we have a vegan activist who's saying this, but like, here's what the truth actually is. And people just, I think, enjoyed seeing somebody stand up for the dairy industry. But it was in July of 2021, we actually joined Facebook. So I was always kind of anti-Facebook. I always kind of thought it was like for old people to look at their grandkids, or like just wasn't a place for it. But we got on Facebook as a backup because I was one more video away from getting banned on TikTok. So if I put up a video of like a newborn calf and there was some placenta on it, it would get flagged for violent content or graphic content. If I did a vegan rebuttal video, that would get flagged for bullying. So we were kind of getting limited on how much we could do on TikTok just because of that. So Facebook was a backup, and it kind of felt like we were starting over because we had no presence there whatsoever. 22 to 23, much to my surprise, Facebook actually outpaced TikTok. So TikTok, at that time, we were still doing all the same videos. I just put all those videos on Facebook, but then Facebook actually grew past TikTok in followers, engagement, reach, interactions, shares. Everything about it was better. And what surprised me was my most popular demographic on Facebook, probably 70%, is between the ages of like 25 and 45. And so we realized a lot of that is millennials and the millennial mom buying groceries, buying food for their kids, and they want to know where their milk is coming from. Our lowest percentage is probably over 60 and under 18. And I think under 18 is where TikTok comes in. It still has a role to play. But 2023, we focused more on Facebook. It's where the interactions were. It's where the engagement was. And we took the second half of the year off of TikTok. And I'll talk about why here towards the end. I took the second half of the year off of posting, but not consuming. And that's an important distinction. People ask how. How did we gain so many followers? And my short answer is, I don't know. I don't have a good answer. But I do have a funny story. So there was a guy at a keynote I was giving last February. He works for a financial institution, and their institution essentially held a corporate retreat. They brought experts in from Silicon Valley, from Meta, and from TikTok. And they were teaching this financial institution how to grow a following. And they had examples of all these followers. Like here, I don't remember some of the big names, but it was like, here's what they did. They posted 5 times a day. They used 2 hashtags. They post before 10 a.m. They do this, they do that. And here they grew a following. And then here's a guy who grew a massive following, and we have no idea how he did it. And it was me. So I don't know how we did it, and Meta and TikTok don't know how we did it. So I don't have a lot of great answers for people other than people want to be heard. So I heard a fascinating statistic yesterday out in New York during the last election. AOC and Donald Trump, there was people out there on the same ballot, people split and voted for Donald Trump and AOC. Same voter voted for those two people. How does somebody do that? How does somebody vote for such polarizing figures on the same ballot? Their overwhelming response was, they make us feel heard. And I think that's why our page has been able to gain some traction and gain followers is we make people feel heard. We don't make them feel stupid. We answer their questions. And we don't belittle them because they don't know what they don't know. And so we're going to just answer their questions and educate. We get an overwhelming amount of positive comments. I know you can't read these, but a lot of comments that say, I look forward to your videos. I started drinking milk again because of you. I enjoy your posts. A big part is how relatable you are. We like that we don't feel stupid. So people want to be able to ask questions and learn where their food comes from, because people don't know. We know there's a massive disconnect between where farmers are and where consumers are, and that gap in between. So we're not going to fill that by being rude to people. But we'd be lying if we pretend there's no negative. So, like I said, it took 2 weeks to find the angry vegans. We've had more than a fair share of negative comments. So I do have, we'll see how the video comes through, and if it doesn't work, I can tell you exactly what he said. This happened back in 2021. This guy's name is Reed.
Hello, Iowa dairy cow abuser. I hope you're doing as great as the cows you exploit.
So he started off with, hello, Iowa dairy cow abuser. I hope you're doing as well as the cows you exploit. So like fall of 2021, when I saw that video, that was like one of the first vegans that like actually like came after our page and attacked, and like I got really anxious, like my heart was full, like how do I reply to this guy? And essentially we just replied with like, he just was saying things that weren't true, and we just said, hey, here's what the truth actually is. Like, yeah, the dairy industry is the meat industry. Our cows eventually become food, and they become other resources too. And what I learned through Facebook, and Reed's comment sections got bombarded with mobs. And here's what I mean. Because cows, like I explained through that video, is that cows, you know, bulls, whatever they go to market, whatever's not meat, there's a lot of other resources, byproducts, other than just the beef. One of those that I learned is lung surfactant. So lung surfactant from cows, from bovines, goes to the NICU to save preemie babies. So Reed's comment section on that video was flooded with moms whose babies were saved from lung surfactant. Like, I couldn't do any more good than that. Like that did more than I could ever do. For Reed to hear from a bunch of moms whose babies were saved because of cows. I don't know what Reed thought when he saw those comments, but like that's a really powerful thing that can happen when you get people to understand why cows are an important part of our entire agricultural system. So, let me go back. One more thing. The 20-60-20 rule, what I want to talk about is like, are you teachable? And I know I can't teach Reed, right? So why am I addressing him? Because you guys are at the top 20%. I don't need to convince you guys to drink milk, that animal agriculture is okay. Reed's at the bottom 20%. I can't convince him that animal agriculture is ever going to be okay, or that it's ever okay to drink milk. But we're going after that movable middle, because there's a movable middle that is teachable. And they're watching me and Reed engage. And we're going to see Reed's page grow 200 followers from that rebuttal video. We're going to see my page grow 200,000 followers and 150,000 followers on Facebook just from that one video. Because people saw his facts and my facts, and we can see where people agreed with. Because some people have said, I shouldn't address Reed, you should just ignore him. It's like, we know people want the truth, and we can see that through their support. They followed our page and not his. If we have nothing to hide, then why are we hiding? That's what's always bothered me, is if we have nothing to hide as a dairy industry, then why are you telling me to hide and just ignore him? Whoops. Getting excited. Why are we ignoring him and just pretending like he doesn't exist? Because they exist, and they're real. And by ignoring them, I feel like we're giving them more traction. So let's just confront them and say we don't have anything to hide, because we don't. So this is the only video I've ever had get flagged on Facebook for graphic content. And we'll see if you can see it. But if you can't see the words say how vegans think milk is made. So that video on TikTok had 26 million views, but on Facebook it was flagged by right around 7 million views. But that's the only one I've ever had get flagged for violent content. Real quick, we got 12 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through a lot of stuff here. What we've seen consumers like for engagement has been really fascinating. So there's 3 different videos up here, and the one that's on your left is a shot of a robot. You can see that had 142,000 reactions. 142,000 reactions and 26 million views. That's our most viewed video. In the middle, we see one that has 220,000 reactions, but 9 million views. On your right would be 450,000 reactions and 4 million views. So how do we have less views but way more reactions? Well, a lot of that is what the content is about. So the robot video is just, how's a robot milk a cow? Well, that's cool, and it's geeky and nerdy, and people will look at that and they'll say, oh, that's cool, and they'll just hit like. But when we look at the other 2 videos, we were talking about a hard topic. So Noah was saying that in that middle video, Noah would go on to say that on dairy farms, cows usually leave the herd at 5 years of age when their production value decreases. I hop on and said, sometimes it's less. And people were surprised to hear that. Usually they expect a dairy farmer to come on and say, no, we keep them till they're 10, 12 years old. But we don't. Sometimes we get a heifer that calves in, she's not milking well, She's not profitable. We have to let her go. The other video was Mildred. She had 13 calves. And I went on to say in that video that this is Mildred's last calf. Like, she's going on to the market where she's going to become food, an important resource, but she also might save a baby's life. Like, she's going to become other byproducts that might save people's lives. So that video resonated with people because of what Mildred's life accomplished and what Mildred's death will accomplish. So that video resonated with people. So this one, I'm not going to have time to go through all the bullet points in depth, but if you want to, I'll be over here off the stage afterwards. But how we engage is through three-dimensional thinking. So why do you believe what you believe? And if you want to replace the word believe with think to make it simpler, you can do that, because sometimes when I stare at the word believe too long, it stops looking like a word. So why do you believe what you believe? That's pretty simple. Why do you believe that animal agriculture is okay? Why do you believe John Deere and Case? Why do you believe either one of those is a better tractor? That's where your critical thinking on your part has to come in, and can you defend it? The next step is, why do others believe what they believe? So this is a put yourself in their shoes mindset. It's like, why does Reed, our vegan activist friend, why does Reed believe what he believes? And so I need to understand, why does Reed think that? Because if he's never seen anything positive about animal agriculture, obviously he's going to think it's all bad. If he's never learned about life-saving byproducts from cows, and he just sees studies that says cow farts are bad for the environment, and that's all he sees, well, we know why Reed believes what he believes. The last step is a mouthful. Why do other people believe what they believe about what you believe? So an example would be, like, let's say my neighbor, his name is Mike. He's a Case guy, I'm a John Deere guy. I would ask, why does Mike think that John Deere is a better tractor? So maybe Mike would say, well, the dealer's closer, so Dan might want parts a little faster being he's on a dairy. So why do other people believe what they believe about what you believe? Contemplating that helps you build your defense. You can understand where they're coming from. Why does Reed believe that I think animal agriculture is okay? Well, I can look at Reed and say, well, maybe Reed just thinks I'm an uneducated redneck. Well, now I can kind of build a little bit of a defense around, I have a 4-year degree in Bachelor of Science. I grew up on the farm. I know what it's like, people in our communities. There's food deserts, so we know what it's like to not have food. Some people do in our rural communities even, so we know how important food is. So doing this third step of three-dimensional thinking helps us build our defense to understand where these people are coming from, but we can anticipate where they're coming from. So asking, like, why do other people believe what they believe about what you believe is where you anticipate where they're going to come from, where their attacks are going to come from, and how you can build a defense. Okay. Last section, advocating. Should you do it? Should you be an advocate? Should you post on social media? Should you do this? How do you decide? I'm not one that I'm going to tell you that you have to. Now, I'm going to say, if you think you can, try it. You should. I think you should try if you want to, but I'm never going to be the one that says you have to do it, because it's not for everybody. And how do you decide to do it? You need to ask, where's your home? And what I mean by that is, like, when you have just a moment of free time, you have just any moment of free time, any moment of no distraction, kids are asleep, whatever, where's your brain go? If the first place your brain goes is your phone, because you have free time, your phone is your home. But here's the deeper part of that. Every app wants to be your home. Netflix, Instagram, TikTok, any social media app, if you have 20 minutes of free time, they want to be your attention. All of these apps, and here, real quick, what I don't want everybody to do after I'm done with this last section is go delete all their social media apps, okay? But I do want to really caution against the dangers of social media, because we've seen it in my life firsthand, because all of these apps are coming for every second of your life. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they're coming for every single second of your life. Because if you have 20 minutes of free time, they want to be on it. That's how they make money. Your mind is a commodity to these people. And we give ourselves up to them, and our distractions in our minds, we give that up to them because we enjoy it. We distract ourselves too much. So what happened to me in 2023 when I took the latter half of the year off of posting is I was really anxious, I was stressed. I didn't get to the point of a depression, but I could see it coming. And I didn't know why. I'm a 32-year-old man. Why am I struggling with anxiety? Why is it hard just to go out and try to change an oil filter? Like, why can't I do my job that I've been doing my entire life? Like, why is this hard now, all of a sudden? And I wanted to try all these other things to get rid of my anxiety. And I finally figured out, like, this is what anxiety feels like. This is what people talk about when they talk about anxiety. And we talk about all these things that are great about social media, and there are a lot of great things, but we don't stop and ask, like, is this good for me? Is this good for us? Because I tried a lot of stuff to fix my anxiety. But a lot of it was like putting on a nicotine patch and keep them smoking anyways. Like, these things don't fix it when the root problem was overconsumption. So I tried diet, exercise, different hobbies, you name it. But social media is what was making my anxiety worse. So like going into 21, it was fun. Going into 22, it was blowing up. And so I thought, okay, I got to keep going. I got to keep scrolling. I got to keep consuming. I got to keep creating. And then in 23, that's when that really started to catch up with me. And so again, the anxiety got really bad. I just couldn't focus. I was distracted. And then I'd medicate with dopamine on my phone. And then because I was medicating with dopamine, I didn't really like doing my job as much. And because I didn't like doing my job as much, I would medicate with dopamine on my phone. And it was a vicious circle. So here's what I want to get across. This is my big point about social media, is that if we don't regulate our consumption, it will consume us. And that's what happened to us in 2023. And I mean this, that I would rather go through cancer and chemotherapy again than I would go through anxiety. Social media did more for my anxiety than cancer did. And that's where I try to, whenever I have an opportunity to talk to young people, I want them to understand, like, social media is fun. Like, do the stupid dance. Like, do the stupid trend. I did one yesterday with Dairy Girl Fitness and Zoe Kent. Like, it's fun. It's led to some great opportunities. Like, look at the consumers we've been able to reach. We reach on average like 10 to 15 million people a month. So we can do a lot of really cool things. But what I've seen in the latter half of 2024, and especially here in 2025, is I'm on social media the less I've ever been, and I'm creating the best content I ever have, and I'm getting the most views I ever have. So how I do it is I treat my screen time, I treat it like a job in a way, but my social media timer is set like 30, 40 minutes a day. So when that 30-minute timer goes off, I'm done. So I'm more intentional when I am on social media. So when I have 30 minutes, I know I'm going to find the creators I want to follow. I'm going to go look up the things I need to look up. But then I will take 10, 15 minutes and I will just casually scroll because it is fun. I mean, there are really good joys that come from being on social media, and there are some really good opportunities. But we have to learn how to tell ourselves no. And that was where the turning point was for me in 2024. Was anytime something went wrong on the farm, I'd go on my phone. Anytime something was stressing me out with milk production, I'd just go on my phone. I gotta relax. I gotta rest a little bit here and scroll, and that's what I would do. But that's not rest, because we're distracting ourselves into mental, physical, and spiritual oblivion. And that's where I'm going to wrap up. I have 3 minutes here, so this is where I want to finish. Is we're distracting ourselves into mental oblivion with social media. And like I said, I don't want everybody to go home and like, oh crap, I got to delete all of this. Like, no, because you're still going to find another way to distract yourself. If you just go delete all your social media apps, well, then you're just going to distract yourself with Netflix, or you're just going to distract yourself with YouTube. So a lot of this, if you want to have a handle on these things, you've got to learn how to tell yourself no, because here's the important part. A lot of people are thinking, well, I scroll all the time and I'm fine. And it's fine until it's not. You can smoke cigarettes every single day until you're 70 years old, and then it's fine until it's not. You can overconsume alcohol every single day, and it's fine until it's not. And that's what happened to me in 2023. I thought I had to consume in order to create, and it was fine until it wasn't. So we have to learn to tell ourselves no. And I can tell you, breaking the addiction from social media is not fun. For me, it looks like cold showers, fasting 2 days a week, setting a 30-minute timer, telling myself no on going out to places with people because I got to get enough sleep. So breaking free of a social media addiction, to be quite honest, is not a lot different than the other addictions when you think of alcohol or cigarettes. So the social media, what it does, it's playing into the dopamine in our brains, and we need to look at the way we handle our social media addictions, and we need to take our attention span back. Like, we need to take our minds back from these platforms and these apps. Because if we can control ourselves and our habits on social media, and we can do it when we want to do it, you'll be a better creator. And that's what I tell people, is like, if you want to be a content creator, absolutely you have to try it, but you have to be disciplined. And that's the big point I want to get across to anybody who's thinking about being an ag advocate, is absolutely try it and do it, but don't let it consume you. Because too many people put their self-worth in how many views did I get, how many followers am I gaining, because you kind of tend, it's human tendency in a way. If I look at other ag influencers and they're always getting more views, it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? Well, it's like, it probably has nothing to do with you, and it's just the algorithm. The algorithm is a nasty mistress, and sometimes it will not reward really, really good videos. And then all of a sudden you think it's your fault. So I got 40 seconds left. If anybody has any questions, I'll be over here off the side of the stairs. But my last point that I want everybody to consider is a restless thumb leads to a restless soul. So right now it might be fine. You might be scrolling 3 hours a day, and that 3 hours a day, for me, it was like 3 to 4 hours a day. So you think, oh, Dan's just sitting on his couch for 3 hours straight. That's not what it is. It's here's 10 minutes while the cow's waiting to go into the robot. Oh, the kids are done with their supper and everybody's quiet. I'll take 10 minutes. Oh, I'm sitting on the toilet. Here's 20 minutes. And then, the kids are in bed. Here's an hour. It all adds up. And that all still counts to overconsumption. And so it's fun right now. And I want to caution you, it's okay until it's not. So to be a better creator, we have to limit our consumption. To be a better influencer, we have to limit our consumption. To better tell our story as agriculture, we have to be disciplined with our consumption. Because if we don't, a restless thumb leads to a restless soul. So my timer hit 0. I appreciate everybody being here. If you have any questions, please find me over there, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
like, where's my guy? You're on that side? Cool.
Should probably be just a little.
Oh, they're up there. A little closer?
A little closer.
I apologize. We're good.
We're good to go.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here for the forum hosted by the American Farm Bureau Promotion and Education Committee. My name is Amy Estes, and I'm the incoming chair of the Promotion and Education Committee. Our committee is made up of 10 representatives working on behalf of not only the 18 states with official promotion and education programs, but all of Farm Bureau. This means that we are uniquely situated to provide valuable resources and programming that represents and supports state programs, whether promotion and education, young farmers and ranchers, or women's leadership, in their efforts to create engagement with the public about agriculture. We are excited to co-host Fusion this March. We would love to have you join us in Denver, Colorado, March 7th through the 10th. Registration is currently open and ends February 6th. The Cultivation Center Stage is an important part of the P&E convention programming because it offers us a chance to inspire and equip Farm Bureau members to effectively convey the significance of agriculture. That is the mission of the Promotion and Education Program and our purpose for being here today. Please join me in welcoming current Promotion and Education Chair Alan Clark and Vice Chair Heidi Cooper to the stage to help share with you our new program that we are rolling out.
Consumers are more curious than ever about the food they eat, and we want to help build understanding. Our new programmatic endeavor, Ask a Farmer, aims to help farmers answer the questions the consumers have in person, one-on-one. I will let Heidi share what she does and how this new initiative can help us all engage with consumers.
Thank you, Alan, and good morning, everyone. I really am excited to be here and to share with you about our efforts to raise consumer awareness and to chat about our new program just a little bit. You know, at the AFBF P&E Committee, we thought long and hard about how we can best engage with consumers, and to that end, we created the Ask a Farmer campaign. Now, I genuinely love this new program, and that's why I'm really excited to share it with you here today. As someone who personally has the opportunity to engage with consumers every day, I know that I take for granted the incredible conversations that I'm able to have with folks and the relationships that I have built with the people that are buying food at my farm. Not everyone has that same connection that I do with my customers, but I know that every one of our farmer members, every one of you sitting here today in this audience, have the opportunity to make impactful conversations with consumers at home in your own communities.
So Heidi, what are some of the initiatives of our new program?
Well, so I think it's important that when we talk about things like this, we always start with the why. Why does it matter? Why do we want to do this? And honestly, as farmers that are so busy, why do we want to spend our valuable time on prioritizing events like this? So for me, it's pretty easy. I didn't grow up on a farm. My knowledge of farming before I started to work at a little roadside stand was really limited. I worked in the corporate world, was driving by this beautiful farm stand, and decided one day to go in and ask if I could get a job there. My love for agriculture grew. I joined the Farm Bureau family. I met my husband through Farm Bureau, and now I've been involved in agriculture for 15 years. But before that, I really knew nothing. So I know truly what it's like to know nothing, have no experience in agriculture, have some of those misconceptions, and not really know where to turn to find the information that's relevant and that's factual. You know, I know we just heard from Dan, the Iowa dairy farmer, and he was in our CCI session on Saturday, and something that he said that really resonated with me was that I don't blame people for what they don't know. And that's really important, that we're not blaming people for what they don't know, and we're embracing being able to share our stories to help teach them the things that they don't know and we really wish that they did. So now, Alan, what about you?
Well, I grew up on the other kind of spectrum of this. I'm a 5th generation farmer. I grew up playing in the dirt, driving the tractors, making the hay. And I look around and I hear that people are 3 to 4 generations removed from the farm. And I go, you know, that's the city people. That's the people that grew up in rural or urban America. But I was out collecting or paying my rent the other day, and I was talking to one of my landlords. And this gal, her dad grew up running that farm. And she goes, Alan, you're doing a great job. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing it, but you're doing a great job. This gal in my little farming community, she's just 1 generation removed, maybe a half generation removed, and she had no idea what we were doing. She didn't realize that I was out there raising the wheat that was going to one day become the bread in her cupboard. Someone that was in that community didn't realize that food came from out there. She just thought it was something for the cows. And so that shocked me that someone that close to agriculture didn't understand where their food came from. And so it made me want to be able to share where our food comes from, why it's important. And this is our programmatic endeavor is a great way to do this. I want to talk about, or I wanted to hear from Idaho Farm Bureau CEO Zach Miller on why this is important.
So to me, one of the reasons it's so exciting to see all of the AFBF-T&E committee and just our farmers in general at places like this is we spend so much time talking about the needs of farmers. We also need to explain what the farmers' needs are. And communicating with our consumers helps us to understand what our practices need to be and how we need to communicate our practices back to the consumer so that we have less confusion and more allegiance and alignment on to those things that we actually bring us together, not drive us apart. That U.S. grown food from U.S. farmers is the safest, most nutritious, economically best product you can ever get.
As you heard from CEO Miller, we need to be in the store having those conversations to create understanding and alignment. If consumers understand what our needs are, if they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, it will help them understand our why. Now let's hear from a customer in a grocery store that is not a Farm Bureau member on why he thinks it's important for us to present outside our fence rows.
So, Joseph, why do you think it is important to have us here today doing this event?
I think that there's a lot of people who see farm ground, they are familiar that farm exists, but they don't make that connection from farmer or producer to consumer. And so to people get the chance to get out and actually see and talk with those who actually get a chance to produce the food, it goes a long way.
Yeah, and do you think this is something that should be done over and over, duplicated again? Are there other places you think some sort of event like this might be useful to reach out to those customers?
I think in these small rural areas, it's a good idea, but really this should be done in the bigger cities where people don't see as much farm ground, to make that connection between the producer and the consumer to say, oh yeah, this food really is important that it's coming from where we say it's coming from. So.
Yeah. What kind of messages do you think that customers are really looking to hear? What curiosities do you think they have?
I think a lot of people have questions about their food source, where it comes from today. I think a lot of people need to understand where the food's coming from, and I think that having questions of, is your food safe? Is it, where is it sourced from? Those are legitimate things, and if we don't have that connection, if we don't have somebody to answer those questions, they might not ever get answered, and they'll only be subject to whatever the internet has to say.
Yeah, we want them to talk to us.
Yeah, or I mean, ask honest questions and see and get honest answers and see where their food comes from.
So you got to see here in this clip that I asked a customer in the grocery store why he thought it was important for us to be there, and I really loved his answer. There were a couple parts that really resonated with me. He talked about how so many people just don't make that connection between the farmer and themselves as a consumer, and I agree with him. It goes a really long way. You want to make sure you're making those connections and taking time to speak with them directly. Now, it's important to remember that we as people are memorable. Our individual interactions are so much more engaging and rewarding than we can even imagine. I know from personal experience that it is much more likely that someone is going to be impacted long term if they're having conversations with me directly in my farm stand or at one of these events, rather than finding information online and just reading it that way. So we recently held an Ask a Farmer event at a culinary school, and we were able to have some conversations and hear from a culinary director on what her students would want to know from us.
I think that it's important for farmers and community colleges or any culinary programs that you have in your state to engage on more of a grassroots level. Come to the college, invite the college to actually come to the farm so students and instructors can talk to the farmers about where their food comes from. I think it's important for students to know that while they're still learning how to be chefs, because then they can take their knowledge, out with them into the industry and continue to grow it from there.
As you heard, the students want to know how it all began to create a foundation of understanding on what a product is and how to best utilize it. So Heidi, where do you think an Ask a Farmer event could take place?
Yeah, I really think, we both really know this. They can happen anywhere. As long as you find a place where consumers are, you can make it work. The most important thing is that you are meeting people where they are. For me, that means at our farm, but it can be really anywhere. You can do things like this at grocery stores, at schools and fairs. In my state of Massachusetts, we do it on the Boston Common and call it Livestock on the Common. And it's just so easy to make these little moments at all these different places, but the important thing is that you want to step outside your comfort zones. That's what you need to remember. It's like President Duvall says, we need to step outside our fence rows. So here's a consumer speaking to that point.
I think it would be good for you to do Ask the Farmers in bigger cities, because that's where people have more questions. That's where people don't have less of a connection between the farmer and the consumer. And so they could have more connection with where their food comes from.
So I know that I'm surrounded by urban areas, so it's easy for me just to drive a few minutes and to be surrounded by that bigger city. But when you go to those bigger cities, there's a lot less understanding of what we do and why we do it. So that means that the questions that you're asked are going to be that much harder.
I think that's exactly why we need to be there, though. Asking the questions, trying to find out what they want to know, and seeing how we can bridge that gap between consumers and farmers, and not assuming that just because consumers appreciate us, that they understand what we do.
So to me, Ask a Farmer events, it's really easy to think we know and to assume, but that's the biggest mistake we can ever make. We know from Gallup, we know the work that American Farm Bureau has done, that the consumer appreciates farmers, but do we always know why? And do we have that allegiance, do we have that connection, especially at a local level like a local grocery store, so that someone can say next time they have a question versus going to Dr. Google or just going to the grander landscape to say, I have a location where I can actually go and talk to someone that actually has their hands in the dirt or has their hands on the animal to really know what the true answers are. And then that will, hopefully they can spread that to theirs, and that can grow grassroots like we're built upon to tell their friends and their neighbors about the truth of agriculture.
I love the term Dr. Google, but it's so true. I know I use it all the time. I know everyone uses it. But if we can become that resource that creates that trust, we can be who they turn to when they want to know about their food and where it comes from. You've now seen some clips from our own Ask a Farmer events as a great example of a couple easy spots that are great for engagement and conversations with consumers. I'm sure that you can think of a few places you can have your own in your own community where you could host a similar event.
Yeah, so we got to, as the AFBF P&E committee, travel to Idaho last summer, and we held an Ask a Farmer event in a grocery store. So before we got there, Alan, you spent time planning and prepping and getting all of that ready for us. Can you share some of the details about how you organized that so it was ready when we showed up to participate?
Definitely. You know, we've thought about this a lot in my own county and how we could do it, how we can engage consumers, and we thought of an Ask a Farmer event. In our Ask a Farmer event, we wanted to have farmers in the store next to their commodity. So I wanted a beef farmer next to the beef. I wanted the dairy farmer next to the milk. We're from Idaho, so have the Idaho potato farmer next to the potato. Unfortunately, we got a Wisconsin potato farmer next to the potato, so
That's all right.
a little bit.
All right.
So we came up with the idea, and then we went and asked the grocery store. And luckily, the grocery store owner, he was all for it. He introduced me to the manager. We had to explain a little bit what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it. And he was ecstatic to have us there. And so we're like, do we want this to be just a few farmers inside the store, or do we want to make it a community event? And we decided to go with the community event. And what we did is I reached out to the FFA, said, hey, do you guys want to be there? I talked to the grain growers. I talked to the dairy group. And I also reached out to John Deere, because that's my color, and asked them if they'd like to bring a tractor or a combine. And they did. They brought us a big John Deere combine, and they brought us some John Deere mowers and a few little tractors, and so that people could see that there was something going on at the grocery store. And they brought them in, they talked to them at the combine, and then had them go in the store. It was a great event.
So if you had to help prep these folks out here today with just a couple of specific steps they should take to implement this at home, what would you share with them?
I think first, you got to find a spot that you want to do it. Whether it's that grocery store, a convenience station, we've had similar events at a cat dealership. It's just wherever you think that you can have those conversations with people. First, then ask the permission. See if you can get the store or place to go along with your idea. Decide what size of event do you want. Do you want other groups there? Do you want it to be yourselves? And then find a good date. I wanted to have this event on the busiest day in the grocery store. But when we actually had the event, it was a pretty slow day. It didn't work out like I wanted. But what I learned is it didn't necessarily have to be a slow or a busy day. That slow day let us have high quality conversations with consumers in the store. They were able to take time. They didn't have other customers pushing by them and have those conversations. I think it can work on a slow day with a few people or with a whole bunch of people looking at your tractors. I mean, we can engage in a lot of different ways. And then the last thing that I think is important is we took time to help train our members in our county to have these conversations. And one of the resources we used was tackling tough topics, a module in the Farm Bureau University, so that our members felt comfortable in having these conversations.
Yep, so now we've gone through the why, the where, and the how. So Alan, why don't you share a little bit with them about the resources that we have to help prepare them for these events at home?
Well, I'm excited to announce that we actually do have quite a few resources. The one, like I talked about, is the Tackling Tough Topics from Farm Bureau University. That's a great place to start, but also over the next few events at P&E, we're going to have some how to do these things. And so come to the future events, Farm Bureau events, to learn more about how to engage with consumers.
Yep. And we will also be releasing the graphics from the pull-up banners. So on the, you can see in the image here, the banners that are on either side of the store. So those can be used. And then we'll also be providing the talking points for trending topics to make sure that you are prepared and comfortable for the questions that you might receive.
Thank you, Heidi. It was great to chat more about our new program on Ask a Farmer and consumer engagement to build a better understanding of their food supply. For us as farmers, understanding the perspective of consumers and the questions they have help us in the effort to bridge the gap between field to fork. Thank you again. And now I'd like to welcome Nate Schleif of North Dakota to the stage to talk about our update to the field to fork face-off. Nate?
Thank you, Alan. As a P&E committee, we're involved in a lot of different programs. One of the things that we do is consumer engagement. Field to Fork Face-Off is a fun, interactive game show that encourages discussion on consumer perceptions that may be inaccurate. It was created by the national P&E members, like ourselves, a number of years ago. And this year, our committee looked back at those survey results and updated the answers to it. It was a lot of work to get it done, but we've now done it and made it and enhanced it to be a better program. The program is a great tool that we can use at state conventions or member engagement opportunities to help members really understand how consumers think and that their perceptions are not always correct. This morning, we will be offering a demonstration of this program, and now I'm going to turn it over to our host, Mr. Steve Harvey, Alan Clark.
Welcome to the Field to Fork Face-Off, a family feud-style game show that takes a new twist on beginning the conversation about food production and farming. Teams will face off to test their knowledge on the public perception of agriculture. We have 2 teams, and they will compete for the grand prize of just winning. Woo! Okay, now let's review the rules of the game. The answers used in this game were collected as opinions of youth, consumers, and Farm Bureau members to be used as a means to start the conversation about agriculture. The answers are not scientifically correct, but rather the opinions of the respondents. To begin the match, there will be a face-off question between one member from each team to determine which team gets control of the question. That team member who returns the highest scoring answer will give their team a chance to play the question. The team members will have 10 seconds to be given an answer. At the end of the 10 seconds, you will hear this sound. Meh, well, whatever, we'll figure it out. Points are determined by the value associated with the response. To that survey question, if all a team can play the entire board, they will earn all the points associated with the answers. If the team playing gets 3 incorrect answers, the opposing team will have an opportunity to steal. All points of to steal all the points by giving 1 correct answer. If the opposing team fails to give a correct answer, the original team will receive total points value shown on the board. Conferring between teammates while answering in the round is discouraged. But you may talk amongst yourself if the opposing team answers incorrectly 3 times, and your team will have the opportunity to steal. Each match will have 3 questions. The value of the points will double and triple as we advance through the questions. We should have some scorekeepers up here somewhere. If there happens to be a tie at the end, a face-off question will be played to break the tie. The team members that return the highest scoring answers in the face-off will win the round. Okay, let's give a round of applause for our 2 teams. Okay, so we're a national committee. We get an opportunity to select our candidates from all over the country. So we decided to go east versus west. So we have the team from Idaho. Give it up, my home state. Give it up to my Spuddies. And then Massachusetts. They might be small, but I think they're kind of mighty. So I give them an opportunity to think up a name. So we'll see what kind of names they have, team names they have.
Should I say it out loud?
Yep.
The microphone? Our team name is Massachusetts Invented America.
We are defending champions at the Field to Fork Face-Off.
Okay, the Shaken Quakers.
What are the Idaho Mashers?
See, that's a name. They're going to smash the Quakers. Okay, what was your real name again? Sorry, I got done with my joke.
Massachusetts Invented America.
Okay, Massachusetts Invented America. We will start the first face-off. So can I get a person from each round to, someone up here to come up here?
Yeah, Amy! Don't shake your hand, this is war.
Okay, so there's 3 options. We can get the booty shake for the how to win. Probably not. No, I got it. No, definitely not. So I think we'll just go for who can touch their head the fastest. We'll win the face-off question. Okay. The question is, maybe I'll come over here so you guys can see these guys slap their heads. What is the top commodity exported in the U.S.? Oh, the shaken Quakers beat you. Okay, name a top commodity export in the U.S.
Corn.
Corn. Let's see, what did the board say? Oh, the Spud Smashers disappoint. Get back there. Do you guys want to ask or pass or play?
We're going to play. We're going to play.
Okay. Now, these questions, Midwestern high school students were asked, what is the top commodity exported in the U.S.?
Cows.
Cows. Let's see at the board. Close, but you got it. Okay. Again, Midwestern high school students, what is the top commodity exported in the U.S.?
Soy.
Soy. Are you guys looking at my cards? Jeez. Oh, they're on a roll. Okay. What is the top commodity exported in the U.S.?
Cheese.
Cheese. I love me some cheese. Oh. They're not perfect, guys. Okay. What was your name?
Meg.
Meg. What is the top commodity exported in the U.S.?
Apples.
Apples. Oh, they're striking out. Okay. What is the top commodity exported in the U.S.? And what's your name?
My name is Heather, and I'm going to say wheat.
Wheat.
Good answer.
Let's see if it's a good answer. Oh, they're still alive. Okay, what was your name?
Taylor.
Taylor. What is the top commodity exported in the U.S.?
Dairy.
Dairy. Oh, okay. You guys get one shot. See, the mashers, they might have a chance to mash this. Well, it might be the right answer. Who knows? Okay. Midwestern high school students were surveyed. What is the top commodity exported in the U.S.?
Exported in or out?
Exported in.
By the U.S. There's no time limit.
10 seconds. Hurry. Throw it out.
Potatoes.
Potatoes. Is it on there? Oh. You know, they were mocking you for about all you go is potatoes. So, congratulations to what was your name again?
Massachusetts invented America.
Massachusetts. What was that? Okay, it's not over, guys. They got 53 points. This next round is double points, so the Idaho Mashers, they have a chance to win. Okay, face-off question. Face-off question. Pick somebody. Okay, all I have to say is this has to be with enthusiasm or it won't count. Okay? Midwestern elementary students. Make a noise farm animals make. Moo! Yeah, let's see what it is. Oh, they nailed it. Are we going to pass or play? Definitely, this is going to be amazing. Okay. It says name, but I'm going to make you make the sound.
What? No.
Make a noise a farm animal makes.
Bah.
With a bow. What do we got? See, that's how they do it. Okay. With enthusiasm, Kyle. Name a name a farm animal makes. Make a name. Cock-a-doodle-doo! That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Jason, name a noise a farm animal makes.
Quack, quack.
Quack, quack. Okay, we'll see if it's there. Oh! Okay, we'll come over here to the girls. They're amazing. Okay, name a noise a farm animal makes. Oh, we got a pig sound. Yeah. Okay. Name or make a noise a farm animal makes.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, make it happen. Hey, that was amazing. What do we got? Oh. Okay. You guys got 2 tries to pull this off. What name? Make a noise. That is true. Name or make a noise a farm animal makes. Roof. Roof. That's a good one. Let's see what's on there. What were these military, or not military, elementary students thinking not to have that on there? Okay. Okay, Jason. Name a noise a farm animal makes.
Just be an ass.
Whoa, there.
I don't know how to
10
make
seconds.
That. How do I make that noise? E-ah. E-ah.
So I think that was a donkey. Let's see what we got. Oh. The mashers mash my hopes. Okay. You got 10 seconds to make the correct duck noise or Idaho wins. Ready? Set. Go.
Meow.
Is it? Idaho Mashers win. Just to let you know what it is, it's a quack. Squawk. I don't even. What is that? What's a squawk? Chicken? Duck? Okay. It is 202 to 53. Hey, this was according to Midwestern elementary students. Okay, we're gonna go face-off round. Kyle, are you sure you can get your hands up over there? All right, don't smash your hat. We don't want to flatten your hair either, so be careful. Okay, triple points. So you guys can rock and roll still. Massachusetts invented America. They still have a chance. Okay. What is the most important tool a farmer would use? You guys, I think we'll have to go with Kyle. Okay. Hey.
Is that better?
We're going to go with Idaho. Sorry. That's my bias. Okay. Let's go back. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, sorry. He has to answer. You got to answer. It's not over yet.
Gloves.
Gloves. Man, I was talking all this crap, and you let me down. Okay. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
A hoe.
A hoe. Hopefully they can't get them all. Okay. Massachusetts made America? Invented America. I'm actually having a little more respect for these gals.
What?
No.
It's not over yet.
Hey.
What did he say?
Gloves?
No,
Okay. We're going to start here. Midwestern elementary students. Maybe I should have clarified that. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
A tractor.
A tractor. Let's see. There we go. See, my respect is growing. They're talking crap. They said you didn't invent America.
Yes, we did. It's basic history. I'm sorry they don't have that.
Whoa. Okay. Oh, hey. Shh, Paige. Okay. Man, it's getting contentious. This is amazing, right? Okay. Midwestern elementary students. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
I'm going to say their hands.
Their hands. They are important, but the elementary kids didn't think so. Okay. Hey, strongly discouraged to share. Okay. Okay. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
A hammer.
A hammer. Whack it with a hammer. Oh, no. No. Okay. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
A pitchfork.
A pitchfork. Let's see, what do they say? Oh, still in the game. Okay, this is do or die, I believe. They got two? Yep. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
A harrow.
A harrow. This is harrowing. Ooh. What do we see? Oh. You know what? Your respect's still high because you got tractor and they didn't. Okay. Over here. Okay, guys. Midwestern elementary students were surveyed. What is the most important tool a farmer would use?
Plow. A plow.
A plow. Okay. These guys get all the points shown. 254 versus 54. So let's see what the Midwestern people said. Number 2 is a shovel. 4. 5 brains. Come on, guys. They could use their brains. Why couldn't you? No. Hey, thank you very much. Give these guys a big round of applause. We'll turn it over to Amy Jo Estes. She'll wrap it up for us. Thank you very much. You've been a fabulous audience.
We sincerely appreciate you being here. I don't know, we might have needed to throw a flag on the moderator there. I think he was a little biased towards Idaho. Anybody else think that? Anyway, we sincerely appreciate you being here and joining us this morning. We hope that you will seek out the opportunity to engage with us as we are sharing the connect with us as you experience the AFBF convention. If you have any questions about promotion and education, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on the American Farm Bureau P&E committee. We also invite you to come hear more about promotion and education at our 10-year review and future opportunities for promotion and education at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We would love to share more about projects and programs and that best equip our members to share the story of agriculture. Thank you again for your time this morning, and we look forward to you visiting with us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your convention. Thank you.